We are back with another episode of Journey to 3.
Oh, absolutely. Let's take it from the beginning. Take it from the top.
Take it from the top.
Rewind 5 years.
Let's go way back, y'all. 5 years ago, we had been trying for a few years and thought we may have just been doing something wrong.
Well, you can maybe be able to speak for yourself on doing something wrong. We literally tried everything. Now, when you don't know that you can't have a child, but you are trying to have a child, you do everything. And when I say everything, so we've got mechanical beds. I used to put them all the way up so that Whitney would almost be upside down. What other weird things?
Ovulation tests, temperatures, predicting kits, what cycle, what time.
Literally became a second job.
It was, the romance was gone for a minute, y'all. We were trying to conceive, and that was what we were focused on. And that becomes a chore. It really does.
We had alarms set in the middle of the night because we thought, at 2 a.m. is when you're ovulating, so we got to get up and do it.
Got to get up, do it. Justin's got to push the button for my bed to go pretty much vertical. Sat there for 20 minutes, decided, okay, we're basting the turkey type situation. And, after a year or so of that, I guess that was 6 years ago then. So after a year or more of trying, we decided to seek some help. So routine schedules, went to my gynecologist, did some routine questions, and they said, hey, you know what? This is probably just something's not lining up. Your timing may be lining up. Women's cycles can change and fluctuate, and something as simple as a simple injection or an oral pill can get your cycle back on track where you're ovulating at a correct time and everything will be fine. So we tried all that.
We did.
And then they said, you know what? We'll just try a dye test. And what a dye test is, they go in and they actually inject dye into your ovaries, fill up your ovaries to go into your uterine tubes, into your uterus, and you can see the path of your tubes are cleared out, and simple procedure. Most of the time, women are really successful after that procedure. It's kind of almost like a cleaning, like a tube washing. They go in, get all that gunk out, and 2 months later, you're pregnant. Everything is good to go. So this was supposed to be a 45-minute, pretty simple procedure, and I was on the table for about 5. That dye didn't go anywhere. That dye started seeping into my muscle wall, and I was watching it. I was watching the screen happen. Our nurse was there. She looked very concerned, stopped the test 5 minutes in, pulled me off the table quite aggressively, and said, I'm so sorry, honey. My point was, what was she sorry about?
Yeah, right. So where am I at this point? So I was still in the car. I don't even think either I couldn't find a parking spot or something, but I
think I told you to go do some errands. This was a very routine gynecologist appointment. We were just going to get a test. Everything was going to be fine. You had 45 minutes as far as you knew.
That's right. And it was it was one of the appointments that I don't think I could go to.
You couldn't. No, it was in an operating room, and not an operating room. It was in a magnetic room, so we had to do the ties. So it was a surgical type procedure.
At that time, I think I was homebrewing, so I probably ran to the homebrew store to get some stuff.
I think you did. I think it was up north, and you took your opportunity to run to the store, but you had at least an hour. So 5 minutes into my test, it was very clear that dye wasn't going anywhere, and they ripped me off the table quite aggressively because it was excruciating pain at that moment, and I can remember that like it was yesterday. That our nurse was very concerned and said, "I'm so sorry," and I said, "Does that mean what I think it means?" Mm-hmm. And she said, "Yes," and I'm so sorry. We can't help you anymore. You need to go see someone else. So I sat there and I cried, and I still didn't understand really what it all meant. I knew I was in pain, and I knew it wasn't normal, and she had a very, very sad look on her face for me. And then I called Justin.
And I left the store, and I was back to pick her up, and that's basically where our story begins, because at that moment we realized that for the last number of years
We weren't doing it wrong, y'all.
Which definitely helped my ego a little bit.
Also helped mine as well. It wasn't something wrong with the way we were trying to do it normally. We just needed a little assistance. So let's go back to that moment. That nurse tells me, so sorry. I said, put 2 and 2 together. If the dye's not going in the tubes where it's supposed to go, what's wrong with the tubes? So headed back to my gynecologist the next week. They read the lab results, which clearly I knew there was something going on. And they closed my file, handed it to me, and said, we're so sorry, we can no longer help you here. You need to go to a fertility specialist. Again, huge hit. Kind of dramatic in this situation. I think that it was a very big, final kind of black and white situation. So that left me in quite despair at that moment, which was unnecessary, because if I had known that file being handed to me was opening up our journey to 3 and giving us the opportunity that we deserve and that we can work really hard for, that would have been great in that moment. But I didn't feel that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I think the moment that you get told that, hey, there's something wrong and you're not going to be able to get pregnant the way that, in your mind, every other woman on the planet gets pregnant, that's when I think the emotion starts to set in. And I think, one of the things that, without getting into it too much, but I think that it's important to bring up is, the mentality of, I think back then it was, you felt like you were not as much of a woman because you couldn't get pregnant. But couldn't be farther from the truth. And I think that that's the one thing that's really important at least in our story, that's important to tell, is that at that moment, that's the despair that we thought was, Whitney she thought that she was not a woman.
Justin never did.
She's always been my woman, man.
Justin didn't feel, just to make sure everybody's very clear about that. Justin and my husband has always been supportive from day one. He knew there were solutions and alternatives. The hardest thing for me as a woman to know is, why can't I? Why can't I? This is what we're born to do, right? This is genetically what we are born to do, physically born to do. And what was wrong with me that I couldn't accomplish that? And that hurt. That hurt for a long time. And that took the hardest. That was the hardest thing to get over. That was the hardest thing to convince myself that none of that mattered. And that no matter where and how, no matter how we got pregnant, I guess, and where that fits, that was going to be, and I was still going to be able to have that chance. But we may need some help along the way. And once that set in, things were okay. And of course, give yourself some time to rationalize and realize and understand your choices, understand what's actually going on, and then find your community and dive in.
Yeah. And, I remember, right when we got into the fertility office, I mean, that's where the pamphlets are, right there, letting you know that there is a community. You're not alone in this. There are other people going through the same exact thing at the same exact time.
And use your resources. Our first experience, again, was closing the file, handing it to me and saying, good luck, find a fertility specialist. We wish you all the best. Mm-hmm. So we did. We did our research. We found an amazing treatment center.
I believe, actually, your mother.
My mother.
We found a whole bunch of doctors, but she had found probably one of the best doctors, certainly in our area, could also be in this country. And so, we were very excited to meet with them.
Yeah, it was, so bless my mother. She had the time to do the research, and I don't know how she does it, but she has always found the best and expensive doctors. But IVF across the board, we'll joke about that. But it's not a late situation. We understand it's a financial burden and challenge for some. Some are lucky enough to have insurance in states that cover that. And if you can, take it for all it is. But money is nothing compared to the joy you will have, and we will have eventually. But even the joy that we've gone through this experience, even though we were unsuccessful, I wouldn't say it wasn't a joyful experience.
No, it certainly benefited us as a couple.
1,000%.
Because like you had said before, it took a lot of the romance out of our marriage when, we found out that we couldn't get pregnant. And so, going through this journey, like I said, we had our mantra, you and I, we got this, by saying that and by really preaching it and living it, it really helped our relationship, and we really found ways to connect in some segments that we didn't. And it brought us together in a much better way, in a much healthier way. And we're very thankful for, that part of this experience, because this is our journey to 3. You gotta have a pair before you get to number 3.
Isn't that true? So with this, we'll wrap this story up. We'll see how this goes. So we do the test, we go to the doctor, we get the results. They close our file, and they say, find a fertility specialist, and you guys are on your own, and come back to us and see us when you're pregnant. So that was almost 5 years ago. 5 years coming up in December. It'll be 5 years on the dot. Well, I guess from our first no, not even. That was transfer. Oh, I'm getting our dates mixed up. That was a long time ago. So after that, we found our fertility specialist. Went to our first orientation. Go to the orientation, y'all. Go to the orientation. Ours offered free pizza and soda, and that was right. Fun. But we sat in that room. First of all, we were the first ones there because we were so nervous. We didn't know what to expect. So we met at the hospital. They opened up a hall or a lecture room. And we sat down. We were the first couple, and 10 minutes later, there was 10 couples, and there was 15 couples, and there were 30 couples. Then there may have been more. At that moment, we looked around and said, wow, we're not alone. We're not the youngest. We're not the oldest, but we're not alone. Mm-hmm.
And that's important. Like that is, there's one of those things that, as we go through this, is we'll stress some things, because it's really important to remember you are not alone.
Never. Even if it's not people you're talking to in your doctor's office or your fertility center, your nurses and your doctors are fighting for you, and they want you to be successful. And
we want you to be
successful. We want you to be successful.
Email us, talk to us. Again, we've said this in when we did an intro for the show, we're always available. We think that, full communication and transparency with what we're going through will only help you on your journey.
And we couldn't be more real in that regard. I have had personally so much support from women and men, from just everyone coming out of the woodworks once I tell my story or once I even mention our story. My husband has had support independently as well, from friends, family, strangers, colleagues, whoever it might be. But as a couple, we've had support from every single person we've ever mentioned our journey to 3-2. And that feels really good. And it makes not only makes your experience easier, it makes you be able to kind of smile through the tough times, wake up on the right side of the bed, get out of bed some days when it's hard, and just keep moving forward. Because no matter how much pain we go through right now, no matter how much sadness we go through right now, it's going to be damn worth it. And then you got all the stuff when you're actually pregnant. That will be worth it. And if I've never heard a better comment from my girlfriends is, oh, when that morning sickness hits, you will be the only woman who is saying, thank goodness for this morning sickness.
That's true.
So keep that in the back of your mind, everyone. Your journey will be worth it.
That's why we're all here. So thanks for joining us. We look forward to talking to you on the next one.
Bye, friends.